Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the DLG. My name is Skip. Today, we're going into Prescott, Arizona to visit the gravesite of Mary K Cummings. And if that name doesn't mean anything to you, maybe Big Nose Kate will have some significance. She was actually the common-law wife of the famous gunslinger Doc Holliday. We're going to go visit her gravesite. She was really an interesting lady. She had an amazing story. And I'm going to go into that just a little bit with you right now. So Mary Cummings actually started her life, Mary Catherine Haroni, in Budapest, Hungary in 1850. Now, she came from a very prominent family in Hungary, and her father was a physician, and they moved out to Mexico, and he actually became the personal physician and also the surgeon for Maximilian, the emperor of Mexico in those days. And of course, then he was overthrown, and they had to move out to the United States, and they ended up moving out to Illinois. Shortly after that, her mother passed away, and then 1 month later, her father died. And so she ended up in some foster homes, and then ultimately ended up running away when she was around 15 years old, and climbed aboard a steamship. And she was actually discovered as a stowaway on that steamship by the captain, whose name was Fisher. And she ultimately ended up taking his name because they were looking for her. So he was very kind to her. And when they finally reached land, he was able to enroll her, or help her to enroll in a convent school. So she was actually very well educated. At that time she went by the name Mary Fisher, or Kate Fisher. Now, she had many names during that time period. Throughout her life, she had many names. They called her Big Nose Kate. They called her Rowdy Kate, Kate Fisher, Mary K Cummings. So after her days in the convent, she actually ended up in Wichita, Kansas. And now this is when she became one of the spoiled doves of the American West. And she actually met James Earp and his wife, and they owned a kind of a brothel out in Wichita, Kansas. Now, in those days, they called them sporting houses, and she became a sporting girl. And that's where she met Doc Holliday. Now, after she met Doc Holliday, who, as we all know, Doc Holliday originally was a dentist, but he became a card shark, a dealer in Wichita, Kansas, and then eventually they moved out to Dodge City. He had a hell of a reputation for being a heck of a gunslinger, and also a pretty interesting and unique card shark. So after Dodge City, Doc ended up going out with Kate to Fort Griffin, and that's where he ran into a local bully who was not impressed at all by Doc Holliday and his reputation. His name was Ed Bailey. And during their card game, he kept turning over the discarded cards, which, according to Western card etiquette, that was illegal. And if you did that, the dealer actually took all of the winnings. Well, after a couple of times, Doc actually took the winnings off the table, and Ed Bailey pulled a gun on him. And Doc was very quick to react, and he was very quick with a knife. And basically, he gutted him right there at the card table. And the man's guts spilled out onto the floor of the saloon, and he died. Well, of course, it was self-defense, but the townspeople didn't actually see it that way. So they got a lynching mob. And so the local sheriff, the town actually didn't have a jail at the time. So the local sheriff put him up in a hotel room, and Kate saw that he probably wasn't going to last through the night. So she started a fire in a shed there in town as a diversion for the townspeople. and the townspeople all ran to where the fire was located, and she was able to sneak in through the window and gave Doc a couple of guns, and they were able to escape, and then they ended up in Prescott, and that's where Kate and Doc ran into the Earp family one more time. And of course, Doc was on a hell of a winning streak in Prescott. He was actually about $40,000 up, which was a lot of money in those days. And the Earp family, they wanted to go out to Tombstone to take advantage of the silver rush. And Doc and Kate decided to stay in Prescott. And then, of course, they all went out Tombstone much later, and we all know what went on at the OK Corral. Right now, we're going to head into Prescott, Arizona, and we're going to go to the old Pioneer Home Cemetery where Katie is buried, and hopefully I'll be able to find that gravesite. So stick around, guys. I'll be right back. So, guys, let's go see if we can find that very famous gravesite. I think I know pretty close to where it's located. Oh, and I think I might see it. There it is, guys, right there. Mary K Cummings, 1850 to 1940. It looks like in this jar right here, you can actually, there's a guest book that you can actually sign. And I think I'm going to sign that. Of course, somebody's put some cards right over here. Born in Budapest, Hungary, November 7th, 1950. Died at the Arizona Pioneer Home, Prescott, Arizona, November 2nd, 1940. She was 90 years old, guys. Kate actually once said of Doc Holliday that after the fight at the OK Corral, he came to the hotel room, sat on the edge of the bed, and he cried bitterly and said it was just terrible. It was just terrible over and over again. So one thing, folks, in life that's definite for everybody, you've got death, of course. We're here in the Pioneer Home Cemetery. You've got taxes. You've also got Walmart, guys. Check that out. Right there, right across from Katie's grave, Walmart. Go figure, folks. Back in the late 30s, the popularity of the stories of Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp and the Earp family and the OK Corral, of course, were getting very popular. They were almost turned into comic book stories. She wanted to tell her side of what actually happened. And she got a hold of a professor at the University of Arizona. Katie wanted to be paid for her story. The university, of course, wouldn't pay her for her story, so they had to get private funding. That took a couple of years. By the time they had the money to pay her for her story, Katie Elder died at age 90, and all those beautiful stories went away with her. Incredible. An incredible lady. She also was not a U.S. citizen, so they wouldn't allow her access to this to the Pioneer Home where she wanted to live out the rest of her life. And at age 80, she was pretty frail. So she got a hold of the governor of Arizona, and he was actually one of her former customers when she was a sporting lady. And she persuaded him to fix it for her so that she could stay here. And he did that for her. And then once she got here, she became an advocate for senior care. Pretty amazing lady.